Good evening. Welcome to our daily class in Rebbe Nachman on Patreon. Tonight we're finishing up Torah 1, Baruch Hashem, and we only have a small piece of real estate to cover right now, but it's got some very important ideas that help explain things that when I first learned them, they helped also to remove a few preconceptions about spiritual service. We're going to talk about innocence. We're going to talk about power prayer. We're going to talk about the importance of the Jewish people in light of the Torah itself. He goes on, Ashrei Timei Darech, it's the last paragraph in the Torah. Fortunate are those who go innocently on God's way. Ashrei, the word Ashrei, he's already taught us his Lashon Istaklut. It's connected with the idea of gazing. Now, Ashrei literally means fortunate. Some people translate it as happy. Fortunate is more, it's an interesting, what is the difference between happiness? If you're happy, you're fortunate. And if you're fortunate, you're happy. But they're not really the same things. Because being fortunate means that you recognize that you've been blessed. You recognize that you have a gift. That you recognize that there's something special helping you in your life. You have gratitude. It's the opposite, of course, of entitlement. Whereas happiness is a feeling. Now, gratitude is also a feeling, but obviously they're connected. And I think that both ideas connect here to the word of gazing. How does it work? How does it relate to the idea of gazing, looking, seeing, using the power of the eyes, which this Torah we've been emphasizing the idea of you looking at things and with intelligence to see a sechel sheyesh b'kol davar, to see the intelligence that is in everything that is created. Well, clearly it's the eyes is the key, because the eyes are what we use to receive most of our information. And very rapidly, I might add. And so when you gaze on something, you're receiving information from the eyes, but there is this level of the integration of the senses, where what you hear and what you see and what you taste and what you smell and what you feel and through your skin, they're all aspects of receiving information into the mind. And the purer the mind, the more rapidly we absorb information from our environment, and the more pure the reception of that information. Okay. And he explains the next phrase, Tamimei Darech, those who go innocently, of course, in their service and in their lives in general. Zeh Yaakov Ishtam. This is an aspect of course, Jacob, our forefather, who was described as a whole and innocent person. Now, tam means whole, complete, but we often translate that as innocence. Because when you are innocent, nothing is lacking. When I feel lack, that means I have a question, I have a doubt, I have a judgment. And that's going to affect or impact my sense of looking at the world with wholeness. If I feel lack, I can't look at the world as being whole. If I feel whole, then it's much easier to look at the world as being whole and complete. And Jacob certainly mastered that quality because he had to deal with some very difficult things in his life, more than the other avot, the rabbis teach us, in terms of intimacy with his family, with his relatives, etc. Okay. So now we have this translingual understanding that fortunate are those who go innocently. This is the idea of Jacob and the idea of gazing. Now, where does it take us? Well, the idea of innocence is also connected to the idea of mistakel b'sechel shel kol davar. That a person that goes without an agenda, the person that goes without a preconceived idea about something, he's going to be more innocent in his investigation. Now, if I'm a scientist and they ask me to investigate a virus, for example, just for example, if I have an agenda about viruses, then that's going to necessarily impact my ability to investigate the issue. And that connection could be on any levels. A person could have had a virus when he was young and therefore hate viruses. Or a person could have seen a loved one die because of a virus and also hate viruses. Now, if you're a scientist investigating something, I don't know if hatred is going to help you or detract from your work. Maybe it'll help, I don't know. But we know that generally hatred is not a good thing to carry into investigative research. Now, you would think in something as cold, hard medical science is not going to be like social science where you have an agenda about investigating social reform or racial behaviors, etc. Okay, but still, the idea of innocence is really the ikar here. Innocence, it's a quality that you cannot really fake. Okay, a lot of people are interested in God and interested in wisdom and interested in Torah, Kabbalah, mysticism, all kinds of great ideas. But they have an agenda. Some have a big agenda, some have a small agenda, it doesn't matter. The innocent person has no agenda except the knowledge itself. And of course, attaching that to the idea that I want to do what my Creator wants. So an innocent person, the first quality, this is really funny, is that an innocent person, if you ask him what innocence is, he won't know what to answer you. Now think about it. And I've known people like this. If I ask them, what does tamimut mean? What does innocence mean? They'll be like, I don't know. Because they've never encountered the opposite of innocence, which is, there's a lot of names for the opposite of innocence, manipulative, conniving, a person who takes advantage, a person who looks for opportunities to take advantage, etc., etc. Those are the opposites of innocence. A person who has a personal agenda. Usually it's coming from the ego. But an innocent person, he just I don't really know what innocence is. I just am. Right? And just am, that's a very high level. Because God said to Moses, tell them I am that I am sent me. Now what more perfect description? God is what he is, And if you ask any more questions, you're going to get in trouble. So, now we go back to the idea, but the Rebbe's teaching us that this idea of the innocence helps us in this exercise of mistakel b'seichel shel kol davar. That it is when you go with innocence that you can use your intelligence straight and true to look at things and not judge them, but just appreciate them. And look at and look at the details and appreciate the details of what and who they are. And so I think this connects the idea of Jacob, which is the idea of the intellect, and Jacob being innocent. The two concepts, intelligence and innocence, they seem to be, because they seem to be contradictory, but they're not. Most people would think of, an intelligent person, he's very intelligent, but, he's clever. He's wily. But it's not necessarily so. And so, the innocence of an idea, like Yaakov ish Tam, Yoshev ba'oalim, right? He sits in the tents and learns Torah. I mean, if you're innocent, you're not really worried about what's going on out there. You're not drawn after all the fads of the day and all the fears and all the noise. He says, Torah. But how do you merit this wholeness, this innocence, this intelligence? Is through, of course, learning Torah. Which is the idea of the next part of the verse. See, this is one verse from Tehillim, and Rebbe Nachman does this like Hasidic surgery on the whole verse. And he takes apart each piece and he expands it so we understand it in another whole new way. And just as a side note, you should know that Rebbe Nachman also writes in Sichot Oran that the tzaddikim will have Ruach HaKodesh and reveal Torah, that they themselves don't know every perush of every word that they ever said. And so when Rebbe Nachman comes along and takes a piece of Tehillim that was spoken thousands of years before by the great King David, it might very well that King David would be interested in hearing what Rebbe Nachman says about his verse, because he hasn't learned that out that way. So if someone tells you, well, they know everything about everything, it's a little bit of an exaggeration. Because he says very mufarash that all the prophets did not know all the interpretations of all the things that they were saying. Okay. Anyways, so through the Torah, we get to this level of Shalomed Torah, and he goes on to tell us Lomed Torah b'koach. Now, when we learn Torah b'koach, now that's not just reading the words. I think I'll read the Chumash today. Eile Toldot Yaakov Yosef, and go on with the verses and just pleasantly chanting the verses. It's a beautiful thing. What better song could you sing? You know, you could take any verse, you could go on and on and on in a beautiful singing of the Torah. That's called learning Torah. But it's not called Torah b'koach. Torah b'koach is when you put your whole being into it. Your body, your muscles, your bones, your mind, your heart, your feet, your back, everything. Torah b'koach is when you see these guys is standing. I know rabbis that would stand 24 hours straight saying Torah. And that's koach. That's power. And when you put that kind of power in your Torah, now the Torah does something else completely different. What does it do? That gives power to the whole idea, to the whole conceptual realm called the kingship of holiness. When someone learns like that, with all their strength, and the symbol of this kingship of holiness, we already learned, is this letter, the letter Nun, right? The letter Nun is gematria 50, and 50, of course, is what we're building the 50 days of the Omer to Hag HaShavuot, the receiving of Torah. So the Torah is the kingship, ultimately. Madu Malka, the rabbis ask, who is the king? Da Rabbanan, that is the rabbis. Because we don't have a king now. We don't even have a prime minister. And what happens is the Nun receives from the intellect. Your kingship receives from your intellect. Shehu bechinat chet, which is the idea of the chet. And then you take the chet of intelligence and life force and you put it in kingship, and it creates grace. And then when we learned also in the beginning of this Torah that when you have grace, then your words are received in heaven. And that really is what we want. God gave us the Torah, and we're pleasantly sending it back to Him with love and power and strength and faith and all the things that are embedded there. And then when that happens, When our words are received, in other words, when Jewish prayers get answers, then the nations look up. What's going on? Who's this rabbi? Every time he says something, it happens. Who's this rabbi? People go in sick and they come out better. We need a few more of those rabbis, I guess, you know. But then what happens is that the importance of the Jewish people rises because they carry the name of Hashem with them, because their prayers are answered. And then all the prayers and all the requests are accepted. That is the end of the first Torah of Likutei Moharan. And it is a famous Torah, because it's the first one. We already asked the question, well, why did he put it here? Why did he put the first Torah in the beginning of this collection that's going to be about, over 400 Torahs? Why? Well, one answer is because in this first Torah, we have one of the main themes of why the Jews are in exile. The Jews are in exile to pick up the sparks and lift the kingship of God over the entire world. That's why Avraham Avinu had to go down to Egypt to show Pharaoh, you're a big guy, it's true. But we have a bigger guy, and he's called the Melech Malchei Amlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. There is a king over all kings, Pharaoh, and the Jew is there to prove it to him. How? Through the miracles. And so too did Yosef. And so too did Moshe Rabbeinu to the Pharaoh of his generation. And then, of course, we come back to Israel, and then we get kicked out of Israel, and we got to go do the same thing in Greece, and in Italy, and in Persia, and in Russia, and in France, and in Spain, and in England, and in America. And a few other 100 countries along the way. So it's been the same process of elevating the kingship of God. That is the Jewish mission. Or one part of it. And I think that's one of the reasons why the Rebbe put this Torah at the beginning. Because it encapsulates the purpose of the journey. And we are on a journey. And even from those of us who merit to be in Eretz Yisrael, thank God, and to be in a country that is, steeped in history, wisdom, and holiness, we do recognize that millions and millions of Jews still have yet to come home. And we're praying for everyone, especially now during this difficult time. So I hope that we grab onto the ideas here, because when you have these ideas, as we go forward in the Torah, you'll see they reappear. And they're rewoven into the fabric of the Torahs that are about to come next. So we're going to continue this process, hopefully to the end of our days. And God bless all of you. We'll see you again on Patreon. Check us out. We gave a class last night on the Lighthouse, on Jewish meditation. And we're spreading out far and wide, because these are the vessels that God gave us. Thank God. Have a great evening, a great day. All the best.